Welcome to the Tom Sense Show, right here, right now. We have got the real stories moving this country today, from massive shakeups inside the federal government to the brutal truth about our national balance sheet. Before we dive into the headlines, remember that you can drop your questions into the chat on YouTube or over on X at any point during the broadcast. I will pull the best ones and answer them right in the middle of the news, so make them count and skip the nonsense. Let us get straight to work. President Donald Trump has officially picked Dr. Heidi Overton to take the reins as the next commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. She currently serves as the deputy director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, and she is stepping in after Marty Makary left the post back in May, following major staff cuts across the agency. Trump took to Truth Social to call her an absolute rock star, who is going to work directly alongside Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Medicare boss Dr. Mehmet Oz. Naturally, the usual suspects in Washington, D.C. are already having a complete meltdown over it. Abortion activists are panicking because Overton has a clear record of pushing for restrictions on the abortion pill mifepristone. Then you have Senator Bill Cassidy over on the Senate Health Committee whining that her common sense questions about childhood vaccine mandates mean she somehow opposes sound science. Let us look at what is actually happening. For decades, the Food and Drug Administration operated like an untouchable fortress that rubber-stamped pharmaceutical company profits while ignoring the chronic health crisis destroying this country. Now, Trump puts in an America First reformer ready to work with Kennedy to clean out the rot, and the swamp claims the system is under threat. If asking whether we should inject toddlers with dozens of shots makes you unfit for office, half the parents in this country are unqualified to raise their own children. The establishment is terrified because the gravy train is finally hitting the end of the line. The United States' gross national debt has officially crossed $40 trillion for the first time in the history of the Republic. According to new numbers from the Treasury Department, we added another $1 trillion to the pile in just 5 months after crossing $39 trillion back in March. The compounding interest costs alone are devouring our revenue, driven by higher interest rates, massive entitlement spending, and expensive military operations over in the Persian Gulf. The White House says it is aggressively targeting wasteful spending inside federal agencies, while budget groups warn that our structural deficits are totally out of control. Meanwhile, over on Capitol Hill, both parties are gearing up for another massive brawl over budget resolutions and tax policy. Here is the plain truth that every working American understands while Washington, D.C. plays dumb. If an ordinary family ran their household budget the way Congress runs this country, the federal marshals would have seized their station wagon by Tuesday afternoon. Politicians from the establishment class have spent decades treating the United States Treasury like an infinite credit card with no bill at the end of the month. They send billions of dollars overseas, fund useless, bloated bureaucracies, and then look shocked when the math stops working. You cannot tax your way out of a spending addiction, and you cannot print your way to real wealth. The only real solution is taking a sledgehammer to the federal budget and forcing Washington, D.C. to live on a budget, just like every single family watching this show. Turning now to some devastating international news out of South America. At least 23 people are dead and 5 others seriously injured after a horrific head-on collision on Highway BR 373 near Ipiranga in southern Brazil. Federal Highway Police report that around 3:30 in the morning on Wednesday, an empty cargo truck crossed right over the center line into oncoming traffic and slammed directly into a passenger minibus. The bus was being run by the Imbituva Municipal Health Department and was carrying patients, their family members, and medical personnel who were traveling to regional hospitals in the city of Curitiba for medical treatment. The victims include 13 women, 8 men, 2 young children, and the driver of the truck. 5 survivors were pulled from the wreckage and rushed to nearby emergency rooms with severe injuries. The governor of Parana, Ratinho Jr., has declared 3 days of official mourning across the entire state, while accident investigators work to figure out exactly why that truck veered across the center, dividing line in the middle of the night. This was a bus full of vulnerable people just trying to get routine medical care for themselves and their loved ones, and it turned into an unimaginable tragedy on a dark highway. It is a heartbreaking loss for those families and that entire local community, and our thoughts and prayers are with every single person affected by this terrible crash. Kim Yo-jong, the powerful sister of North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, came out publicly on Wednesday to claim that Pyongyang has had zero contact with the United States lately, directly pushing back against statements made by President Donald Trump earlier in the week. She released a statement through state media complaining that Washington, D.C. is still carrying out hostile military moves, even though the Pentagon recently scaled back joint military drills with South Korea. Trump spoke to reporters outside the White House just hours later, brush off her remarks and confirming he still intends to meet Kim Jong-un face-to-face later this year, while reminding the world that North Korea holds an arsenal of 57 nuclear weapons. Over in Seoul, South Korean officials are getting nervous because they were not told in advance about the reduction in military exercises. The mainstream press is already trying to spin this as some kind of major diplomatic failure. They cannot stand the fact that Donald Trump uses strength and direct personal diplomacy instead of sending pallets of cash or starting endless foreign wars like previous administrations did. When a hostile nation with dozens of nuclear warheads gets nervous and starts issuing press releases through the dictator's sister, that is not a sign of American weakness. It is what happens when they realize the man in the Oval Office cannot be bought, cannot be bullied, and is not going to play by their tired old diplomatic rulebook. Harvard University has received preliminary court approval for a $53 million settlement to resolve class action lawsuits brought by dozens of grieving families. The lawsuits were filed after federal investigators exposed a gruesome black market body parts ring running right out of the Harvard Medical School morgue. The scandal broke in 2023 when the former morgue manager, Cedric Lodge, was arrested and later sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for stealing and selling donated human organs, brains, and dissected remains between 2018 and 2020. Under the terms of the deal approved in a Boston court, Harvard will pay out the $53 million, hold an informational webinar for the victims' families, and set up an annual scholarship in honor of anatomical donors. The deans of the medical school, George Daly and Bernard Chang, put out a statement calling the whole operation a despicable betrayal of their values. Think about the sheer arrogance of this institution for a second. Harvard charges students hundreds of thousands of dollars, lectures the entire country on moral superiority from their Ivy League towers, and could not even keep track of human remains inside their own basement for 2 full years. They talk about world-class management, but an employee was literally running a stolen body parts bazaar out of their facility while the administration looked the other way. Writing a check and holding an online seminar does not erase the rot at the top of these elite institutions. That is the hard truth for this hour. Keep your heads up, stay sharp, and keep putting America first. We will see you right back here next time on The Tom Sense Show.